Welcome to another deep dive. We're diving into Eduardo Kohn's How Forests Think. And you guys sent us some fascinating stuff about the Runa people of Avila, Ecuador.
Oh, this is going to be good. I love Cohn's book. It's challenging, but so rewarding.
Right. It really makes you question some fundamental assumptions we have about, well, pretty much everything. So we're going to explore how the Runa people relate to the rainforest, especially through this super interesting concept of the Runa puma. Ready to have your mind blown?
I'm always ready for that. Hit me with it.
Okay, so picture this. The Runa live in the rainforest, right? But they don't just live in it, they live with it. They have this deep understanding of the forest as a living, thinking entity.
Yeah, Cohn really emphasizes that. He's not just studying the Runa in isolation. He's looking at their relationship with the rainforest itself, especially the jaguars.
And that's where this whole Runa Puma thing comes in. It's this being, this entity that embodies both human and jaguar. What do you make of that?
It really throws you for a loop at first, doesn't it? Like, we're so used to thinking in terms of these strict categories, human, animal, nature, culture, and the Runa just blow those categories wide open.
Totally. And it's not just some abstract idea to them either. It's deeply ingrained in their worldview. For some Runa, becoming a Runa Puma is a very real possibility.
Right, and this is where it gets even wilder. They associate the color white-like, visions of white jaguars, which they call Runa Puma, with Christianity and civilization.
Whoa, hold on. So they're connecting something that we in Western culture might see as wild and untamed, the jaguar, with something that's often seen as the opposite, Christianity and civilization.
Exactly. It's almost like they're saying that becoming more integrated with the modern world isn't about rejecting their traditions, but incorporating those modern elements into their existing worldview.
That's such a powerful point. It really challenges that old colonial idea of savage versus civilized, doesn't it?
100%. And this idea of respect, of recognizing the jaguar as a powerful being in its own right, really comes through in that story. Kohn tells about one Kiku advising him to sleep face up in the forest.
Oh, yeah. So the jaguars would see him as an equal, not as prey. I love that story. It speaks volumes about their worldview. But let's be real, jaguars are dangerous animals. Kohn doesn't shy away from that.
No, he definitely doesn't. Remember that heartbreaking story about the jaguar that killed the child? And Kohn included the photo of the mother and surviving child in the book. It's a stark reminder of the very real risks the Runa face living in the rainforest.
Absolutely. So we're dealing with a complex relationship here. The Runa respect the rainforest, even revere it, but they also recognize its power and the very real dangers it holds. They buy guns, they use modern goods, but they also maintain these traditional practices and beliefs, like using ayahuasca to connect with the forest.
And that's what makes their perspective so valuable, I think. They're not stuck in some romanticized view of nature. They understand its power and its beauty, its dangers and its gifts.
Okay, now ayahuasca, that's something we hear about a lot these days, but usually not in this context. So for those who don't know, what exactly is it and how does it fit into this whole idea of how forests think?
So ayahuasca is this incredibly potent brew that Runa shamans use to basically, well, they believe it allows them to enter the spirit world and gain knowledge.
It's like a way of accessing a different level of understanding.
Exactly. And it's through these ayahuasca-induced experiences that they believe they can communicate with the forest, with the jaguars, and learn about hunting, and even, get this, understand the hidden language of the rainforest itself.
Wait, so they believe there's an actual language of the rainforest?
That's what's so fascinating. It's like they're tapping into a whole other layer of communication happening, something beyond our everyday understanding of language. This is where semiotics comes in.
Semiotics, go on.
Think of it like this. We use words and gestures to communicate, right? Well, the rainforest has its own system of signs and symbols that the Runa can interpret. They see meaning in animal behavior, in the way plants grow, even in the sounds of the forest. And get this, Kohn suggests that this communication isn't just one-sided. He uses this incredible phrase, pigeon transpecies, to describe how the Runa communicate with jaguars, especially through their dogs.
Whoa, hold up. Dogs are involved in this interspecies communication. How does that even work?
Well, imagine you're trying to communicate with someone who speaks a totally different language, right? You might start with gestures, pointing at things, trying to find some common ground. The Runa's pigeon transpecies is kind of similar. They pay close attention to the sounds and movements jaguars make, the tracks they leave behind. It's like they're piecing together a puzzle.
So they're not just listening with their ears, they're listening with all their senses. That's amazing.
It really is. They believe that through generations of observation, they've learned to read these signs and use them to navigate their relationship with these powerful creatures. It really makes you question our understanding of language as something solely human, doesn't it?
You know, when you put it like that, it makes you realize how much we take for granted in assuming we're the only ones with complex communication systems. This pigeon transpecies is a whole different level of understanding the natural world. We're just scratching the surface here, and I'm already hooked.
And it's not just about jaguars, right? Kohn is saying that this selfhood, this capacity to think and communicate, it isn't just a human thing or even just an animal thing. The Runa, they see the whole rainforest, like the entire thing, as this living, thinking being.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking about earlier with that whole living thought concept. The rainforest isn't just some static backdrop to their lives, is it? It's like this active participant in everything that's going on. It really makes you wonder if the Runa have figured out how to, tap into the rainforest's language, what else are we missing out on?
Right, and that's what Kohn is trying to get at, to push the field of anthropology even further. Like,
Wow.
how do we even begin to understand these other ways of thinking, these non-human ways of communicating? It requires us to really rethink everything we thought we knew about, well, about thought itself.
It's like we're trying to wrap our heads around this whole other dimension of existence, one where the lines between humans and nature get completely blurred. It's kind of exciting and also a little intimidating, don't you think?
Absolutely. But Kohn's work, it gives us a starting point. He shows how the Runa's understanding of selfhood, the fact that they see it extending beyond just humans, it directly impacts their actions. They're not out there trying to dominate or exploit nature like we often see. They have this deep respect for it.
Which is such an important lesson, especially now with all the environmental problems we're facing. It's like they figured out this fundamental truth about living in balance with the natural world that we seem to have forgotten somewhere along the way.
Totally. They see the interconnectedness of everything in the rainforest. Every action, every decision, it creates these ripples. It's not some abstract idea for them either. It's woven into their daily lives.
So it's not just about, like, literally talking to jaguars. It's about recognizing that our actions have these far-reaching consequences. It's not just about us. It's about the whole web of life.
Exactly. And they remind us that true knowledge, especially about the natural world, it comes from this place of deep engagement, of really paying attention. The Runa have spent generations listening to the rainforest, learning its secrets, figuring out how to live in harmony with its rhythms.
It's like they've mastered the art of truly listening, and not just with their ears, but like you said, with all their senses. And this brings us back to that whole thing about the spirit world, which Khan suggests is so deeply connected to the rainforest for the Runa. It's almost like they don't even see them as separate realms.
And this is where it gets even more mind-blowing. For them, the connection to the spirit world isn't just about performing rituals or holding certain beliefs. It's about this direct experience of interconnectedness. It's not some far-off place. It's woven into the fabric of their daily lives. They talk to spirits, ask them for guidance, interpret their dreams. They even believe that their afterlife is intertwined with the rainforest itself.
Wow, that's a radically different way of thinking about the afterlife than most of us are used to. You have to wonder if their constant interaction with the rainforest, with its cycles of life, death, and regeneration, shapes their understanding of these big existential questions.
And this is where our own preconceived notions, our own cultural baggage, it can make it really hard to truly grasp a worldview like the Runas. We're always trying to put things in these neat little boxes, life, death, physical, spiritual. But the Runas, they challenge those categories.
It's like they're showing us that the world is a lot more fluid, a lot more mysterious than we often give it credit for. And maybe trying to impose our limited understanding on something as vast and complex as the rainforest, or the spirit world for that matter, is a recipe for missing the point entirely.
Right. For them, there's this fluidity to existence. The past, the present, the future, it's all interconnected. It's a perspective that asks us to get comfortable with uncertainty, with not having all the answers.
And honestly, that can be a really tough thing to do, even when you're not living in the middle of the rainforest, surrounded by jaguars and spirits.
You're telling me. But the Runa, they show us that leaning into that uncertainty, into that interconnectedness, it can lead to a richer, more fulfilling way of being in the world.
It's like they're saying, hey, loosen up. The world is way more interesting than you think it is.
Right. It makes you wonder, have we been going about this whole understanding nature thing completely wrong? Maybe it's not about extracting data and resources. Maybe it's about building relationships, about respecting different ways of being. Kohn even suggests this really cool idea that the Runa Puma itself could be our guide.
Like our Virgil leading us through this unknown territory.
Exactly, showing us how to understand what lies beyond the human.
I love that analogy. But how do we even start? How do we begin to bridge that gap? Understanding a world that thinks so differently from us seems pretty daunting.
I think it starts by acknowledging that, well, yeah, the world is a lot more complex than we usually give it credit for.
It's about recognizing that maybe, just maybe, we're not the only ones with a valid perspective.
Right, exactly. Other life forms, they might have their own intelligence, their own ways of communicating that are just as important as our own.
Just like the Runa's deep respect for the non-human world, right? They don't see themselves as separate from nature or above it. It's more like they understand that they are a part of something so much bigger than themselves.
And it's not just some abstract idea to them either. It's about survival, about understanding that their well-being depends on the well-being of the entire rainforest.
So maybe by learning to see the world through their eyes, through this Runakuma lens, we can start to heal some of the damage that's been done. We can build a better relationship with the natural world.
It's a way of thinking that's more important now than ever before, for sure.
It really is. And it all starts with recognizing that we aren't the only ones here. Other beings deserve our respect, our attention. They deserve to exist and thrive just as much as we do. And who knows, maybe by listening to them, by actually trying to understand their languages, we can create a future where both humans and the rainforest can thrive together.
I love that idea.
So next time you're out in nature, take a moment to just listen. Really listen. Pay attention to things you might normally miss. See what you notice.
You might be surprised at what you find.
Who knows? You might even catch a glimpse of that Runa Puma guiding you toward a deeper understanding of the world beyond the human. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.